Hari Om, everyone.
Hari Om.
Shall we begin? Oh, oh, oh. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Samastajana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam. Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidwaram. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gururadirnadischa Guru Paramadaivatam Guru Parataram Nasti Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Na guroradikam tattvam na guroradikam tapah tattvajnana param nasti tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Harihi Om. So we are on mantra number 7, mantra 6. If you count the Shanti part, then it's mantra 7. So we've covered the student, how the Lord manifested as Brahmaji with the Vedas. The student who's examined life in its entirety reaches the feet of the Guru. The Guru, who is Shrotriya Brahmanishta, needs to teach him nothing but Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya, we said, is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, located in the cave of space of our own heart. And then the next verse says, so what is the Atma? And it says the Atma is also Divya, Amurta, Purushaha, Pranaha, Amanaha, and it equated that also to the Satyam Jnanam Anantam. That's where we left off. Now, so there's Brahman, which is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. There's Atma, which is Divya, Purushaha, Yajaha, also Satyam Jnanam Anantam. It's what illumines my own heart. It illumines me. Brahman is a substratum of the world out there. There are still apparently two entities, one here, one there, and there's all this debate. Well, what do I do? I'm different from Brahman. This is the part, that is the whole. You have all these bhajans. I'm the wave. This is the ocean. I'm the small eye. You're the big eye. So we move to the next mantra. Let's see what that says. And this is from the Kaivalya Upanishad. Kaivalya means Moksha Upanishad. We've done this here. Some of you may have done it with me a few years back. It's called the Moksha Upanishad, Kaivalya. Mantra number 7. Yat param brahma sarvatma vishvasya ayatanam mahat sukshmat sukshmataram nityam tattvameva tvameva tat. Yat param brahma sarva atma vishvasya ayatanam mahat sukshmat sukshmataram nityam tat tvameva tat. No word that we study in this Upanishad, Vidyasar, will go unexplored, unexamined. No word. Yat param. So param means that which is not limited, unlimited. Yat param. It's saying that Supreme Brahman, Yat param Brahma, is unlimited. Now we understand limitations from the standpoint of everything can be limited by only three things, which is time, space, and an object. If something is limited by time, it means it existed at some period of time and then ceased to exist for the period of time. Space, it exists at one place at one time and then exists at another place at another time. Object, it exists in one object but not in another object, and you'll get all these fights. The temple in Tirupati has God, but the temple in Rameshwaram has not the Purna avatar and all that stuff. So this Yat Param Brahma, Param means it is not limited by time, space, and object. Sarva Atma. This Brahma, which we said is limitless big, which is Yat Param, unlimited, it is in Sarva Atma. So it's not just in the heart of my Guru or in realized masters, but it is in the heart of every single individual. It is the self of all beings. I think in the book it says Brahmadi Jibalan Pipirikanta Tanushu. So from Brahmaji to the blade of grass or the unicellular organism, this Atma exists. So what does Atma even mean? We think of Atma as some kind of property which gives us this manifestation of life. We may even, but the definition of Atma is that without which the thing cannot exist. So immediately we may think of Dharma, that without sweetness, sugar cannot exist. Sweetness is the Dharma of sugar. But this is not even Dharma. This is saying without Atma, that thing cannot exist. So a better analogy is not sweetness and sugar, which is the Dharma, the property of sugar, but it's more like gold and gold ornament. That gold is the Atma of gold ornament. Because without gold, the gold ornament cannot exist. However, without the gold ornament, gold does exist. Whereas if you say sugar and sweetness, you can say without sweetness, there is no such thing as sugar. But without sugar, is there a thing such as sweetness? Not really. So it's a property. This is not a property. This is the very cause for which everything exists. That's known as Atma. Okay. So Yat Param, unlimited, Brahma, limitless big, Sarva Atma is the self of all beings without which nothing can exist. And we talked about this in Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Again, we said it was Divyo, Purushaha, Yajaha were the analogies. And then we went on to say it is Apranaha, Ammanaha, Aksharat, Parataparaha, which means it is not, it is in my heart, but it is not my gross body, not my subtle body, not my causal body. It is truth, it is existence, it is consciousness, it is infinite, it is bliss. This continues. Vishvasya ayatanam mahat. Vishwa, the entire universe. Mahat, big, grand, large. Ayatanam. Ayatanam means the substratum, the support, the adhar, the adhishtan. It actually means a hutment, ayatanam, but it means the support. So when you say Vishvasya ayatanam mahat, this big, limitless, big support of the entire universe is this Brahma, is this Atma, which is in the sacred space of my own heart. I'm going to pause there for us to think about that. This is not an Atma seeking a Brahman. Then we go to Vaikuntha Lok and then we play with each other. This is not the Atma which is small and Brahman which is big and I'm seeking him in Tirtha Yatras. This is not a part and a whole. This is not a wave in the ocean. This is saying the Atma is the substratum of the entire universe. It is limitless big. It is the very cause for which everything exists, without which nothing exists. Atma. What has been indicated here? Atma equals Brahman. Yat param brahma sarvatma vishvasya ayatanam sukshmat sukshmataram nityam tat tvameva tvameva tat. There's a lot to discuss there, so I'm going to pause. This is the hardest thing to understand for anyone. Intellectually, we may even get it. We may get Atman, we may get Brahman. But to get Atman is Brahman is a hard one. So what does he say? Sukshma sukshmataram nityam. Nityam, it's eternal. This Atma is eternal. That's why even in the Bhagavad Gita it says, Hanyati hanyamane sharire. You can kill me, you cannot kill my Atma. This Atman is sukshmat sukshmataram. Let's analyze this. It took me all week to get this one actually. Sukshmat sukshmataram. So in Vedanta, sukshma means subtle. Sukshmat sukshmataram, subtler than the subtlest. So what does subtle mean in Vedanta? Subtlety is defined as the degree of pervasiveness. And a lot of concepts will become clear today. The degree of pervasiveness. So if something is subtler, if A is subtler than B, then A is more pervasive than B. Ice is gross, water is subtler, water therefore is more pervasive. Steam is more subtle and therefore more pervasive. Goes all over the place. So let's take the Pancha Mahabhuta, the 5 elements. Now another factor. The more perceptible something is, that is, the more it is an object of our perception, the greater the degree of grossness. Put another way, the lesser properties something has, the more nirguna it becomes, the greater its subtlety, the greater its degree of pervasiveness. So we have got 5 jnana indriyas. I can only see, smell, hear, taste, touch through my 5 jnana indriyas. If something can be perceived by all 5, it is grossest. If something can be perceived by only one, it is subtlest. Keeping that in mind, let's analyze Earth. Earth can be perceived as Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Shabda, touch. Shabda, sound. Sparsha, touch. Rupa, form. Rasa, taste. Gandha, smell. And the unique feature of Earth is Gandha, smell. And because it can be perceived by all five sense organs of mind, all five sensory perceptions, Earth is the grossest. Prithvi is the grossest. Next we move to water, Jala. Water is subtler than Earth because it can be perceived by Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa. The special feature of water is Rasa, taste. Water has no Gandha, it has no smell. If water has got smell, it has been contaminated by Prithvi. Therefore, water is subtler and therefore more pervasive than solid earth. Now we move to Agni, fire. Fire can be perceived as Shabda, Sparsha. Anyone else? Rupa, form. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa. No rasa, fire has no taste. Gandha, it has no smell.
Oh, no, if it's too tiny, then it creases that means it's too tiny. Exactly.
As a result of which, it can be perceived by only three sense organs. The special feature of Agni is form. It's Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa. So therefore, fire is more subtle than water. Now we move to air. Air can be perceived by Sparsha, Shabda, and Sparsha. There's no Rupa, no Rasa, no Gandha. Shabda and Sparsha. And the special quality of air is Sparsha, touch. The organ, the Jnanendriya, which does that is the skin, touch. Therefore, air is more subtler and therefore more pervasive than fire, water, earth. We move to the last one, which is Akash, space. Space can only be perceived by Shabda, sound. Special feature is sound. Without space, sound is not possible. So space is the subtlest and therefore the most pervasive of all the five elements. Now we move to our thoughts, our mind. This is where it was self-unfoldment. I think I did 20 years ago. I still didn't get it. So we move to our mind. You cannot see, smell, hear, taste, touch your thoughts. Therefore, our thoughts or our mind is not available for perception by our five jnanendriyas, our five sense organs. As a result of which, our mind is subtler and therefore more pervasive than all the five Pancha Mahabhutas, including space. So one of the trick questions we used to ask is your mind in space or is space in your mind? And we all waffled around and gave some spiel. So space is in our mind. Our mind is more pervasive than space. Now, what happens? We are in deep sleep. When we're in deep sleep, avyakta, vasanas only, there is no mind even. Therefore, that deep sleep state is not accessible by seeing, smelling, hearing, tasting, touching, feeling, thinking. So that deep sleep state of avyakta is even more subtle than the mind, than space, than air, than fire, than water, than earth. You see, the more nirguna we become, the more subtle we become, the more pervasive we become. Because even mind has got gunas. Avyakta, gunas are there, but in unmanifest form. Now, this Atma is sukshmataram, nityam, eternal. Why? Because it is nirguna. No gunas. Aksharat parataparaha. It is beyond the subtle body, beyond the causal body, beyond the avyakta vasanas. Therefore, it is the most subtle, it is the most pervasive, and therefore cannot be an object that I can see, smell, hear, taste, feel, touch, think, or sit in unmanifest form. It is beyond that, and therefore that has to be the subject. If it cannot be an object, it has to be the subject. And the subject can only be one. Sukshmat, sukshmataram nityam. So we've gone from the Pancha Mahabhutas, explaining how that leads us to this Atma, which is the subject, and the subject can only be one, and that subject Atman, it says here, is Brahman. All pervading. Remember, subtlest means more pervasive. Subtler than the subtlest means all pervading. All pervading means Sat, Sat, Satyam, Satyam, Jnanam, Jnanam, Divyam, Chit, Anantam, Anandam, Divyo, Yamurtaha, Yajaha. All these words we used, they all come into play. Apranaha, Amanaha, Yaksharat, Parataparaha, all tying in together to the previous two verses. Now comes the fun part. If you thought that was good, now comes the fun part. But any questions before I proceed? Yes, Divya, Advija.
Sorry, this is really basic Sanskrit, and I keep reading it everywhere and I don't get it. And it's when you say it's what illumines you, what does that actually mean? Can you give an example? What?
The clearest one is alive and dead. What's the difference between a live person and a dead person? Some X factor which illumines the subtle body. That X factor which illumines all my thoughts, that allows me to speak these words, this inert piece of equipment, this inert tongue is able to move and speak because of some factor that is known as the illumining factor, known as Atma in each individual. And at a macrocosm level, for us to understand, it's known as Brahman. These verses are trying to equate intellectually, at least, that Atman equals Brahman. Any other questions?
Not so much a question, but when I read this verse, I think it was yesterday or day before, like you, for the first time, the penny dropped. Because I've always heard this, all the five elements, the entire universe is in the mind. And I struggled with it and struggled with it for a long time. In fact, the most recent time I heard Swamiji say it, and he did it very dramatically at the family camp at Vibhuti last year, where he said, look, starting from this room where we're located, we're part of the state of Maharashtra, as it turns out to be at that time, which is in the country of India, which is in the continent of Asia, which is on planet Earth, which is a part of the solar system, which is a part of the, bigger and bigger concepts. And he said, I was getting closer and closer to the edge of my seat as he kept going, because I was like, okay, this is gonna answer the question which has been sitting there for so long. And it reached, he said, okay, and then we reach the borders of the universe, or we come to space. Where's the universe residing? It's in space. And I thought, okay, great. Next is, and he just cut it off by saying, and space is in the mind. And then he moved on in the topic, and I was like, ah. But it was quite interesting because then I grabbed the brahmacharis, because obviously Swamiji is too difficult to get at, when you're in India. And like, again, I went round after round after round with them. And they kept asking me, do you get it? Do you get it? And in the end, I kind of just made peace with it by saying, yeah. But until I read that line yesterday in the book, it was not clear. And it is in terms of the subtlety. And I don't think I've come across this analysis before as well, that the subtlety in terms of what is less perceptible through the senses is more and more subtle. As obvious as that is, it never struck me before. So I'm really grateful that that we're covering this book, because at least now I feel a little bit more at peace now that, okay, when we say the universe is in the mind, I understand what they're talking about. I may not have realized it, but I certainly feel like I'm more at peace with it now.
Good. These verses are very reflective. I think at least what I do is I read this on like Monday, and then the rest of the week, I just contemplate on each word, so that by today I've memorized it. And if you memorize, then each word pops out, each word. And that's the only way to do this text. Okay, now we come to the fun part, which is something again which is hard to intellectualize. Tat tvameva tat. Those who did Kaivalya Upanishad, you remember Gurudev used to play a drum. Tat tvameva tvameva tat, tat tvameva tvameva tat. Tat tvameva tvameva tat. So in our minds, it's still, I am the wave, there is an ocean, I have to merge and become the ocean. Or I'm the wave, I'm separate from the ocean, and I have to worship the ocean as a separate entity, and then I go to Vaikuntha Lok, and then I serve the Lord. Or I am a part, it is the whole. I am small, it is big. There's a small I, there's a big I. These are all our concepts, all of us. I need to go to a Tirth Yatra, I need to go to camps, I need to go here and there, so I may find the big I. So even this example of wave and ocean, we've used it so much, is flawed. And Gurudev tried to explain it in chapter 7, I think, when he says, they are in me, I am not in them. And we explained this last week, I think. They are in me, I am not in them, which means the total amount of waves put together do not constitute the ocean, but the waves are nothing but oceanic waters. So they are in me, I am not in them, means they derive their independent, they do not have any independent existence of their own, they are simply ocean in motion. They are disturbances on the ocean. So each of us is nothing but a disturbance as our identity in Atman. Actually, today's evergreen messages was interesting. 9th November. The soul is in its essence, the soul in its essence is God. Soul minus our egoistic mistake is God. God plus our egoistic mistake is soul. So tat tvameva tat. All waves put together are not the ocean. So this ocean wave example also is useful but not complete. Tat tvameva, that thou art, tvameva tat. And this Atman is Brahman. That you are, and you are that. So realization is not complete. Intellectually, yes, Brahman is the self in me as the Atma illumining me, accepted. This Atman is not only Brahman, but is the self of all. Realization is complete. So here it is hammered home in the Kaivalya Upanishad. Most say Tattvamasi. Here it says Tattvameva, Tvameva Tat. That is me and I am that. I'll explain further. This oneness is really, really important. So what happens when the student first goes to the teacher? I think, Vijay, you mentioned this to Guruji, and he says, do not use Mahavakyas as a japa mantra. This is why. When you first go to the teacher and you say, what is Brahman? The answer he gives you is the first Mahavakya, which is Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is consciousness. Prajnanam Brahma comes from the Rig Veda. Consciousness is Brahman. It is known as an Upadesh Vakya. Upadesh Vakya. Teaching, instruction. The student goes away and comes back to the teacher. And he says, where is it? And the teacher says, Tat Tvamasi. That thou art. That is you. To an advanced student, that is enough because that is known as a Lakshana Vakya. Indicative pointer. If you follow that pointer, not the point, not the point, if you just follow the direction of the pointer and don't hold on to the pointer, you reach the pointed. And this Tattvamasi is in the Samaveda, is a Mahavakya from the Samaveda. Then the student comes back and the teacher asks him, now what? And he says, Aham Brahma Asmi. Aham Brahma Asmi, that is his own self-realization. This completes this Tattvameva. Tvameva Tat, when that's complete, it is Aham Brahma Asmi, which is I am Brahman from the Yajur Veda. And this is known as an Anubhava Vakya. Anubhava, experience, his own subjective experience. So you cannot use any of these as a japa mantra. Aham Brahmasmi is to indicate the that one has had an experience of this Atma Brahman oneness. Then he asked the Guru, now what shall I do? He says, Ayam Atma Brahma. That is from the Atharva Veda, Mahavakya. And Ayam Atma Brahma is simply Anusandhana Vakya, which means just revel in it now. There's nothing else to do. Kritakrityascha Bharata, there's nothing else to achieve, nothing else for you to do. Revel in it. So Tattvamasi is the Lakshana Vakya in Chandogya Upanishad, but this Kaivalya Upanishad tells you that Tattvamasi, when it becomes your own Anubhava through not just Tat Tvameva, but Tvameva Tat, then you say Aham Brahmasmi and you live as Ayam Atma Brahma. So these last three verses have been critical. What is Brahman? What is Atman? And this oneness between Atman and Brahman so beautifully expounded that there can be intellectually no questions. What's needed now is simply faith in this Upanishad as the Prabala Praman, the supreme means of knowledge to realize the self. Yat Param Brahma Sarvatma Vishwasya Ayatanam Mahat Sukshmat Sukshmataram Nityam Tat Tvabeva Tvabeva Tat. Any thoughts?
Can you repeat the bit about why the ocean example falls over here?
Because the ocean example still says the wave is a part and the ocean is the whole. And the sum of all the waves do not make the ocean. This oneness is only indicated by the content of the waves. And until one gets that, the impression is still, I'm separate, I'm a big wave, I'm a small wave. And you try to explain. Here it's saying there's no question of waves. Atman is Brahman. There's no question of big Atman or small Atman or sum of all the Atmans equals Brahman. It's trying to blow away those notions from our head.
I see. So essentially what we're saying here is that both wave and water, both wave and ocean are water in essence. That's what we're talking about.
That's it. But they're just water.
So it's not that the example falls over. It's just that you've got to see it as water, not focus on the names of ocean and wave.
Exactly. The name and the form has to drop.
So can I clarify?
Yes, Rajesh.
So here the wave is seen as Jiva, the ocean is Ishvara, and the water is Brahman.
Say that again.
The wave as Jiva, the ocean as Ishvara, and the water as Brahman.
It's a beautiful way of putting it.
But is it correct?
It is correct from our
Of
intellectual
course.
standpoint, but in essence, what this is saying is there is only Atman, which is equal to Brahman.
Yeah.
That is it.
Okay, it's just for my understanding.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it, which is also, you can say, the if you've got an embroidery on a cloth, we did this in Saddarshanam, and there's flowers and all. Then the flowers and everything are the jivas, and then the substratum is the Ishvara, but the cotton is Brahman.
Thank you.
So, Rishji, I don't know, maybe I'm at a very different level, very infant level in this journey. But I'm just thinking that, we say that we should use all our indriyas to reach Brahman or to understand Brahman. But at the same time, we are saying that Brahman is not perceived by any of these indriyas. So I'm a bit confused. How does that both? relate?
You can only use your indriyas up to a point to intellectually understand that what I am not. You can never use your indriyas to understand what I am. Hence the logic of negation in Advaita Vedanta, neti neti. The previous verse therefore says, apranaha, I'm not the pranas. Hyamanaha, I'm not the mind. Aksharat parataparaha, I'm not the causal body. The three things I think I am, the gross body, the subtle body, the causal body, are both all destroyed. Well, if I'm not there, again, we're following the pointer. Follow that line of thought. If I'm not what I am. What am I? And in that seeking, in the seat of meditation, that prakashante mahatmanaha, that reveals itself when the mind has become so pure and devotion so supreme that reveals itself.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to ask, actually, following on from that, can you use your indriyas to develop devotion and therefore understand Brahman or reach Brahman? Because by doing daily puja, listening to bhajan, looking at pictures of Bhagwan, in that way, very material level.
Let me rephrase that question. Romy, are you married?
No, thankfully.
You have any close relatives you really love? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
So okay, bad example. In real life, when you say you love someone, to ask the question, which indriya should I use to love that person? It's a hard question. If you love your child, should I use my sense of smell? Well, that kid can stink. Should I use my sight? Well, he's puking all over himself. But still, I love that kid. In spite of. So in spite of all my sensory perceptions, there's something that makes me love that child unconditionally. So indriyas are not needed for love. Love comes through a expansion of oneself to see themselves in someone else. And in that expansion, one loves the other as one loves themselves. Because one loves themselves more than anything else. So love is simply an expansion towards something else. And that comes from, in the practical purposes, from serving. When you serve someone, you begin to love them. When you love them, you want to serve them because the manifestation of love is only in service. There is no other way of manifesting love. You can hug as much as you want. Manifestation of love is in service. You want to serve. You want to do something for the other person because that person becomes you, in essence. So as for a practical perspective, when you serve, you develop love. But yes, pujas help, bhajans help, anything which helps you to gear your mind towards the higher, purifies the mind, opens up the mind, allows love to flow. So they're all useful practices.
Suruji, when we talked about the oneness and the subtlest, and from now I can recall the time I met Guruji 2 times recently also. So because these are, they have reached to that level, they are so, minds are so subtler and they see oneness in everything. So that's why they can reach to our mind. They can see what thoughts going in our head or what, and I felt that that he was just looking at me and just waiting for me to say something, like there's something question in my head, and he's just waiting for me to say. I can see that. I think now I can see that because of that subtlety, and they have reached that level, they can sync with our thoughts. They can see the thought process.
That's a good point, which is what explains why they have so much empathy. That's the key word. Empathy for others' sorrows. They are way above it, but they have empathy because they see you as them and they've been through it. I mean, you could go and say, my mother died, and Guruji will say, you know what, but you are Brahman, you are Atman, what's your problem? Go. No, he will physically draw tears, he will hug you because he has empathy.
Can I, just going back to previous conversation, you can serve without loving, but cannot love without serving. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Many people serve without loving, but then they will demand a cup of tea at the end of the day for serving. Whereas when you love and you serve, you demand nothing, expect nothing, want nothing.
I think Narayana Bhakti Sutra has got a lot of good. That's also another another book by Swami Chinmayananda, and it's very strong, and from the bhakti perspective, I think it's quite a revealing book literature.
I mean, you look at the Swaminarayans, and hats off to them. From doctors to lawyers to laborers, they are there every day working, building temples, giving their time, taking time off. Why? Simply their love for their Bhagwan. Hats off to them. The problem is, in our sampradaya, some focus on seva, some on bhakti, some on jnana. To synthesize all three and bring them together is the secret of this journey.
Can I just go back to the subtlety discussion?
Yeah, go ahead.
So progressively from Earth to space, we're getting subtler and subtler. We then come to the mind. And the mind is, none of the senses can experience the mind. Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, Rupa, Gandha. None of them can experience the mind. Yet the mind operates through them, through the senses. But the mind also operates independent of those senses, because you can still feel things which none of the senses can experience. And the book also made a very good point that actually in a dream state, you can still feel, taste, etc. So the mind is still tied to the concept of the senses, even though the senses themselves have no ability to experience the mind. So it's this kind of subject-object relationship. What happens when we move that forward to the intellect level?
At this level of discussion, the mind is the intellect. We tend to say mind is separate from intellect. They're both the same. Because the intellect is simply a decided thought. And the ability to decide a thought is what we call discrimination, intellectual capacity, intuition, whatever you want to call it. So for in Vedanta, even though we like to do M and I separate, mind is the intellect. They are both thoughts. The difference is intellect is a decided thought. That's number one. Now you said the mind has to express through the senses. It does for us to perceive the world. But the mind operates in a way that may not need to express through the senses. The mind may feel certain things, and its manifestation will be through our body, our heart pounding, or we feel sorry, or we feel sad, or we start sweating. So that's the manifestation. But that doesn't mean the mind has to operate through the body. And I'll give you an example why. Because the mind is independent of the body. Once you die, the gross body drops, the mind and intellect independently with the samskaras and the vasanas move on to get another body. So the mind is independent of the body. In fact, the whole idea of spirituality is this separation of the mind from the body. How? As Ramana Maharshi says, keep inquiring. What is this mind? What is this mind? And the more you inquire into what is this mind, the mind itself drops off. So few things hit me this week, actually. Just that, as you said, space is in the mind. I finally got it. And tat tameva tat. That's a very important one. To blow away those still limitations we had about part and whole, small and big, separate, equal yet separate in our minds. It's equal, yet it's separate. Drop that separation, just the equalness. It's a mind-blowing concept because it's saying, I am Vishwasya Ayatanam Mahat. This entire universe support is me. Just let that sink in.
But when you approach verses like this, it becomes easier to at least intellectually appreciate that. Because what's wrong is like literally the verse is screaming at me, is that your concept of me? So, to think this Sandeep as defined by his passport identity is the substratum of the universe is ridiculous. However, when you look at, as it's indicating, yourself in essence, then it's not possible to be anything else. It's not possible to reach any other conclusion. It's as simple as it's a fact. There's nothing here to really decipher or understand. It's more a question of, as you said, getting rid of the false notions, the neti.
That word fact is also quite misused in Jessica's profession as alternate facts and fake facts. It is the truth. There's only one truth. Dvija, sorry, you had your hand up?
I think we surpassed it. I was just going to say, it's very resonating with Purnamada Purnamidam. It's saying the same thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. I hope you've all memorized those verses of the Gita. I've put it on the group. Who wants to chant it?
So sorry, sir. Just before we go there, can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Sorry about this. So we're used to thinking of these 5 elements from a body perspective. but the subtle form of them also constitutes a mind. So
subtle
earth,
form- yeah, go on.
so essentially, and this is probably the kind of delusion that I'm trying to shatter right now. What makes up the mind is thought, and thought is made up of, essentially, as I had understood it, possibly wrongly, of the subtle aspect of these 5 elements. So there's still earth, water, fire, air, water, space is still making up the content of what a thought actually is. So how do I understand that in this kind of progression that is being indicated in this verse?
So it's degree of subtlety, which means degree of pervasiveness, which means degree of nirgunaness, if there is such a word. The lesser and lesser gunas, the more and more subtle. So the mind is made up of the tanmatras as a result of the splitting up of all the gross elements into the subtle elements, which we've done in Vekchudamani. What is the technical word? Anyone remember? One part of earth.
Panchkarna, Panchkarna, something.
Yes, you're almost there.
No,
Anyway,
it's a long time back.
So the mind is also formed as a result of the subtle aspects of earth, subtle aspects of water, fire, and so on. These subtle aspects forms the mind. Therefore, by definition, even from a guna perspective, the mind is much more subtler than any of the Panchamahabhutas alone. So that explains how even the mind is subtler than space, because it is formed from the subtle aspects of the Panchamahabhutas. And the fact that it cannot be perceived also by any of the jnana indriyas makes it even more subtle than space, because space has got shabda. The mind has neither shabda, sparsha, rupa, or rasa, or gandha. Okay. Any other questions, or we will move on to these 5 verses of the Bhagavad Gita, which every Hindu needs to memorize and chant and pass on. So should we start? Does anyone want to take the first verse and we move to second, third, fourth, fifth, 5 volunteers? Bhartiji, anyone else?
I can do.
Lakshmiji, anyone else? Rajeshji, 3, 4th, Jayashri, 5, 5, Meenaji. Okay, so let's begin with Bhartiji in the order. You can begin with the first one.
Is it Uddhared, the first one?
Yes.
Uddhared atmanatmanam natmanam avasadaye atmaiva yatmano bandhu atmaiva ripuratmanaha.
Next one, Lakshmiji.
कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूः मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि.
Rajeshji.
Sorry, was it me?
I think Rajeshji was next.
Yeah. Okay. Yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhoshi tadasi yaha yat tapashyasi kaunteya tat gurushva madarpanam.
Rajesh.
I'm doing the 4th. Can I do the last one, please?
Okay, Meena, do the 4th.
Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam pahamyaham.
Sarva dharman parityajya Mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhyah moksha ishyami ma suchah. Hari Om.
The way I do it, in the shower, you begin with verse 1, and until you don't chant all 5, you don't stop showering. By the third day, you would have memorized it. Wonderful. We will continue next week is, wow, next week is our last class. And then I'm on the road. So I'll be in touch when we'll have the class after that, but we'll take on one more shloka next week. One more mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnaat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all very much. I'll see you next week. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank
Hari
you. Hari Om.
Hari Om.